Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed this grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining seas.
Good morning, Vipers. I'm Elena Martinez along with
Clyde Collins.
here with this week's weekly show. First off, we hope you guys had a lovely Labor Day weekend.
It feels like the week just started yesterday.
It did start yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Well, anyways, to kick off this week's weekly show, here's this week's weekly update.
Good morning and welcome. My name is Stephen Applegate and I'm here to tell you all the news you need to know on this 4-day week of school here at Verrado High School. As 9/11 comes around, I just like to take a moment this week to remember all the fallen victims and how this has strengthened us as a country. 10th through 12th graders, if you still have summer registration paperwork in your backpacks, you need to turn that into the office ASAP because they need it. Anime Club is meeting every Monday from 3:10 to 4 o'clock in room E8. They're watching One Punch Man. Yeah. Nintendo Club is meeting every Tuesday from 3:10 to 4 o'clock in B8. Minithon will be meeting on Wednesday, September 6th from 3:10 to 4 o'clock in E8 to work on our new Viper Vision. Thank you guys. That's all I have for you this week.
Well, welcome to another Tech Time with Eric. Well, I have to say today's going to be a very special episode. Today I'll be showing you my latest purchase of retro technology. Here you see before you is the HP Agilent Internet Advisor. Now this piece of tech right here is actually quite special. To give you a little back history on it, for those that are not aware, Agilent Technologies is a spin-off from HP. Their primary focus is basically creating diagnostic-based hardware. Basically, they design scientific-based instruments that help you to analyze and diagnose certain key electronical functions throughout, business industries, everything from medical to even down to a school level. This particular device right here was built back in '97, running Windows 98 SE. Now, the icing on the cake for this device you see right here is that for those that may be aware or may not know of, during 1999 we had a scare called Y2K. Basically, we're afraid that our current way of how computers work wouldn't roll over once we hear the year 2000. So this device, when I picked it up, has a sticker from Hewlett-Packard that says another Y2K compliance device. And it just shows you how much history this has been through. When I further looked into it, turns out it was last serviced back in 2006, so it's got the latest components that can keep on working. This particular device was used up until 2008 when they were all decommissioned for newer pieces of hardware. Now the funny thing is, this was one of the latest versions back in the day, and at the time this cost around $20,000 and weighed about 10 pounds. So it's kind of cool to say you pick this thing up and it's only 20 grand. That And it's just kind of cool to have a piece of hardware like this. It's loud, it's noisy, but it just really shows you how far we've come in the last 20 years. And yeah, that's basically the Agilent Internet Advisor. And I hope you guys enjoyed this historical look back with this piece on Tech Time with Eric.
Good morning, Vipers. I'm Quinn Russell, along with
Noah Powers.
here for your weekly sports update, VSPN.
Badminton has their next home match Monday at 4 p.m. against Centennial.
Cross Country's next away meet is September 7th at Desert Edge.
Boys golf, the next away match will be against Yonker on September 12th.
Girls golf have a home match against Valley Vista today at 3:30 p.m.
Congrats to Swim and Dive on your overall win against Basha, 217 to 123. Make sure to cheer them on at their next meet tomorrow at 4 against Cactus.
Great job to girls volleyball for a close game. Their next home game is tonight at 6 against Queen Creek.
Viper football, good job on a close game against Millennium. The next home game is this week against Williamsfield.
This has been Quinn Russell
And Noah Powers.
for your weekly sports update, VSPN.
In remembrance of the devastating 9/11 attacks that happened nearly 16 years ago, I decided to interview teachers and students around Verrado and ask them 2 questions. What does our national flag mean to you? And if you could say one thing to all those brave men and women who helped out during and after the attacks, what would you say?
Well, the American flag to me symbolizes obviously freedom, courage. It embodies just that spirit of entrepreneurship.
The United States flag. So, what I think the United States symbolizes, it symbolizes our freedom, our independence.
So to me, the flag means always trying to do better. Never thinking like going backwards and being satisfied with anything in the past. Like always striving, moving forward, trying to always be better than where we've been.
Our national flag represents patriotism, freedom, unity.
To me, the flag represents everybody in this country being an American, but more importantly, it represents the differences that all of us have as Americans and our ability to celebrate those differences.
And as far as the 9/11 victim, the responders in 9/11, I can't even express in words just how thankful we all are.
I just want to say thank you so much for helping all those people. Although we have lost a few people during that horrible event, I just want to thank all the police officers, the firefighters, and
If I could say one thing, it'd be, thanks. Keep doing what you're doing.
If I could say one thing to the folks that helped out during 9/11, pretty much would be thank you. I had friends that went there and helped out, but we lost a lot of good people.
I would just say thank you, just to keep it short. I have the utmost respect for first responders, military, and then just everyday heroes who were there that day, and then the people who helped afterwards. So thank you.
Hey, did you guys
Wait,
know
wait. No jokes.
Wait, what? What do you mean?
Weren't you gonna make a joke to pay back for last week?
No, this is a serious weekly show.
You know what else is serious? The work police officers and firefighters do. So we want to give a big thanks.
Thank you!
On September 11th, 2001, 8:46 a.m. Eastern Time, American Airlines Flight 11 crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. 18 minutes after the crash, United Airlines Flight 175 sliced into the South Tower of the World Trade Center. At 9:37 a.m. Eastern Time, American Airlines Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon. At 9:59 a.m. Eastern Time, the South Tower of the World Trade Center collapses. 4 minutes after, United Airlines Flight 93 crashes in a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. At 10:28 a.m. Eastern Time, the North Tower of the World Trade Center collapses. 2,753 people died at the World Trade Center. 343 were New York City firefighters, 23 were New York City police officers, and 37 were officers at Port Authority. 184 people were killed at the Pentagon, and 40 passengers and crew members died near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. As of August 2017, 1,641 of the 2,753 World Trade Center victims' remains have been positively identified.
On September 11th, 2001, 2,753 people lost their lives in New York when two airplanes crashed into the World Trade Center buildings. Two other planes were hijacked on that day. One crashed in the Pentagon, and the other crashed in a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. This tragedy affected the entire nation. 1,717 families got no remains from their loved ones who lost their lives in the incidents. Teachers and staff from Verrado tell us their experiences and how they remember the tragedy and how it affected them and other people around the country.
And my whole family was particularly nervous about it because my grandparents were flying out of Boston that day to come out to Arizona. So they were flying at the same time as the planes that were hijacked. So every time we heard like, oh, another plane is hijacked, or when the second plane had crashed, and it just kept escalating and escalating, and we didn't know where my grandparents were, if they were okay, if they were one of those planes. So we were really nervous the whole day. It was a very scary day.
I happened to be living and working in Australia at the time. I'd been there for almost 3 years, and I'd worked really late because I remember it was about 11 o'clock coming home, and I hadn't had dinner yet, so I got something for dinner, sat down on the couch, and I was excited because it was late enough I could turn on and watch the Today Show and kind of catch up with what was going on back in the States, because normally I didn't stay up that late. And I flipped it on, and it was right after the first plane had hit the first tower, and they weren't sure. They didn't know it was a commercial jet at that point. They thought it was a small private plane. And I remember the newscaster talking about that, and I'm sitting there watching and going, really? How would you accidentally fly into a building that size? And as they're talking, in the background, you saw the second plane hit. And that time from the footage, you could tell that wasn't a small plane and something really bad was happening.
9/11, I remember I had my garage door up, and there was a knock at the garage door coming into the house from the garage. And it was my neighbor Todd. He's like, dude, did you hear? We're under attack. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I was so confused. And he told me that the first tower had fallen, the second one hadn't fallen yet. And he goes, do you know what that means? And I'm like, no, not really. So I knew about terrorism before, but it wasn't until that I think it really drove home the point that we have a big problem with terrorism.
I think that it affected America because we realized that we have a really substantial threat against us that had obviously been a problem in the past, but it had never been something so shocking and overwhelming. So I think our culture changed a little bit as a result of that, sometimes for the better because we came together as a nation, sometimes for the worse because now it takes a really long time to go through the airport and things like that. But ultimately, I think that it just ended up changing the way we behave as a nation towards threats.
I think the day after and about a week after, it really bonded the country. It brought everybody together. It shows what being American is all about. I think that's the biggest thing and the biggest takeaway for me, seeing that is, we had a tragedy here in the United States, and it really unified our our country, whether you were of a different race, you were a different ethnicity, different gender, no matter who you were, you're still American, and it really brought everybody together.
Brought us together in good and bad ways, and a lot of good ways, and just like you're seeing now with hurricanes, when things happen, you see the best and worst of people, so you saw the best of us as humans, as Americans, then you saw the worst of us, because after that came the warmongering and the hatred of certain people, and that still goes on, the denigration of Muslims and that whole thing in our country, which wasn't good. The uber nationalism that has risen in our country has spawned certain things that aren't good for our country. So there are things that it did affect us. It affected us.
This tragedy was a huge turning point for America and many of its families. America was never the same after this incident, and we will never forget it. The survivors and victims of 9/11 will always be in our hearts and prayers.
Man, I swear, every time I see a 9/11 documentary, it truly breaks my heart.
Yeah, I totally agree. It was one of the most tragic days in history.
I know. And now we all know what the flag truly symbolizes. This has been Elena Martinez
and Clyde Collins
signing off in KBHS.